So how much has the whole 2020 election and everything that has flowed from it pissed you off?
Oh, I mean, you can't go a day without thinking about what he's done to this country, because he's such a little baby that he's thrown 250 years of democracy out the window.
I'm going to play the rest of that for you in just a second. That was, of course, Larry David, the writer, comedian, actor, producer, etc., who here on Chris Wallace's show on CNN was sharing just his unfiltered thoughts about Donald Trump, which was great to hear. And I have a few different things to show you after playing the rest of this Larry David clip that are similar, people discussing Trump in sort of blunt terms. And this segment, one of the takeaways I think for you is we need to get more blunt, more stark in our language about Trump, because something I've been talking a lot about in the show, especially on our daily bonus show for members, is just the lack of an understanding among American voters at large at what is going on right now, at what the election's about, what the stakes are, the existential nature of this November election. And how can we motivate people to come out in the numbers that we're going to need to defeat Donald Trump if there's not an understanding of the necessity for that to happen among enough people? So before I say more on that, here's the rest of Larry David.
By not accepting the results of I mean, it's so crazy. He's such a sociopath. He's so insane. He just couldn't admit to losing. And we know he lost. He knows he lost.
Really quickly, going to pause your viewing of this segment to ask you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's so helpful to grow the show. Just make sure that subscribe button is clicked and click the like button as well. Back to the video.
And look how he's fooled everybody. He's convinced all these people that he didn't lose. He's such a sick man. He's so sick. Anyway, no, it hasn't impacted me at all.
So again, blunt language there. But I do think on the election and Trump's attempts to block the peaceful transfer of power, his lies about the election, it is important to point out where this all comes from. Why it is that Trump started this whole lie that he then used as justification for attempting to overthrow the Democratic election results, and how this has now become the MAGA litmus test. We're getting reporting that the RNC is asking job applicants what they believe about the 2020 election, if it was stolen or not. This is becoming a defining characteristic of the modern Republican Party. Why? Because Trump was too sensitive, was too much of a snowflake, and couldn't have tough enough, manly enough feelings to accept that he lost an election like every other political adult has been able to do for centuries. Every other person in his position who lost an election as president was able to accept that they lost. Trump couldn't. And so he created a whole alternate universe for himself to live in where he won, and for his followers to live in where he won. And now we're dealing with the repercussions of that years later. Again, with the RNC trying to hire people based on what they believe on that, or at least wanting to know what they believe on that before deciding on hiring them. And just believing that or spreading falsehoods about the election obviously deteriorates the perceived legitimacy of our electoral system for reasons that aren't justified, that aren't based on evidence, and that's damaging by itself. But also, it has become a core part of the justification for extremely anti-democratic actions. When Trump and his allies were attempting to prevent Biden from becoming president, even though he won the election with schemes like the fake elector scheme, as they try to get local officials to disenfranchise their state's voters, as Trump incited a mob to block the certification of the election at the Capitol, the justification, according to them, was that the election was stolen. Again, a fabrication. Such a fabrication that now the people who were tasked with investigating these very claims, like Ken Block, for example, a data analyst who would go and try to find evidence of the claims from Trump's campaign are speaking out and saying, I investigated this for a super long time or very extensively and did not find a thing. And still, this alternate universe is not just something Trump enjoys living in and his followers enjoy living in, but it's become the identifier for this movement. And now Trump being a dictator, his authoritarian ambition, his undermining of democratic institutions and values, in a sense, in the minds of many of his followers, is in part justified because of the stealing of an election. And that is very frightening. And I think it deserves the type of language you heard there from Larry David. Now, next clip that I have for you, Tony Schwartz, who authored The Art of the Deal, the notorious book that Trump loves so much, and he helped Trump write it. He's speaking out against Donald Trump. And take a look at this. He had some stark words as well.
Whether he has a lot of money, because he has plenty of money to do whatever he wants to do, it's really the psychological impact of appearing to be less than he has always claimed to be. You know, just listening, Caitlin, to the set of remarks that you threw up there, there is so little that he says that is true. I sometimes wonder if there's anything he says that's true anymore. There are probably 10 or 12 lies in what he just said, including the preposterous notion that he doesn't have a lot of debt. Of course, he has a lot of debt, but he is fully capable of just saying something that is completely deceitful. Why? Why is he capable of it? Because he's a sociopath. And that's really the most important thing for people to realize. That a sociopath, not just a person who's self-absorbed and narcissistic, but a sociopath has no conscience. And a sociopath, therefore, can say anything and never feel an ounce of guilt. And what he's done is he's almost made sociopathy contagious. He's almost made it okay to say whatever you want, whether it's true or not, and to be proud of having lied about it. We look at that even with Rhonda McDaniel right now. No wonder it's blowing up. This is a person who lied continuously to many of the people who just agreed to hire her. What are we thinking?
That is such a fascinating point, and it's so true. Sometimes I try to explain to people just how massive, the sheer magnitude of an effect that Donald Trump is going to have on politics for a long time. And yes, it's about what I just explained, the undermining of our democracy through lies and through the actions that now seem justified to his followers, and abandoning the dedication to the peaceful transfer of power to our constitutional process in service of this man based on those lies. But you have this other element, which is even on the smallest of things, Trump is remarkably, stunningly dishonest and really can lie and be proud of it, and just in a blatant way that you rarely see. And that is frightening that people accept it, but frightening that it influences others to do the same. And we're seeing that as well. Politics has always been a dishonest game, for sure. Always been filled with people willing to bend the truth, tell lies. But the level of shamelessness, the level of dishonesty has been escalated in the era of Trump. And so people who normally would not be so dishonest are now following his lead and playing that same character and finding pride in their ability to get away with and tell lies and fabricate things. And we talked about in a very recent segment, Carrie Lake, who had to essentially concede in her defamation case and give up defending herself against those claims of defamation. And then she released a video that was another one of these, yeah, I'm doing this because I'm fighting for you and they're coming for me and they're trying to take all my money, but really I'm a warrior for you, even though she's just being held accountable for lying and causing death threats to be sent to this election official, Stephen Richer. And still, to her followers, she can be this brave fighter, completely fabricating a world where she is the righteous one, even though she's the one allegedly defaming Stephen Richer. And that character that she plays, I think she got a lot of the inspiration, or if you want to call it that, for that from Trump, and she's following his lead. And so many of these dishonest characters are doing the same, where they're seeing how effective Trump is as a political figure, unfortunately, in creating this cult around him, that they then want to do that for themselves and untether themselves completely from reality. Because once your followers believe you to be the source of truth, and all news, any fact check, all data, all statistics, whatever that's thrown their way can just be waved away as fake news or liberal nonsense. You have a level of power and can operate with a level of sort of strength and efficacy in a really twisted way that others can't when they're trying to abide by principles and truth. And so that's really scary, that this sort of type of politicking will be around probably for some time, as Tony Schwartz said, because others are imitating the tendencies of Donald Trump, who just does not care one bit about the truth. Then here is Tim Miller, a former Republican on MSNBC.
And I think a message of Donald Trump scammed you. He defrauded you. He stole your money to pay for his own ritzy lifestyle. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is investing in your communities with the CHIPS Act and with the Infrastructure Act. I think that'd be at least a fun message to put on Fox and Newsmax to shake the tree a little bit. And I think that maybe that there are certain types of voters that are in these areas but aren't deep in the Trump cult that might be persuaded by this, because it is absolutely outrageous that the man who runs his whole campaign complaining to care about the forgotten man, and they all wag their fingers at us and say we're East Coast elitists, we don't care about regular people. He's robbing regular people. He's robbing them to pay for his own fancy lifestyle with the Cougars at Mar-a-Lago. That's the reality of what he's doing, and I think that should be a compelling political message.
Watching that reminded me of something I think about a lot, which is MAGA. This is directed at you. Every single day, the people that you hate the most, that you spend your political life hating with a passion, are working the hardest to make your life better. Because we're not defined by, our movement's not defined by a dedication to a cult leader. Our movement's not defined by a visceral hatred for an oppositional movement. Our movement's defined by a dedication to policies that we believe will improve the lives of all Americans, that will uplift all Americans. And so, much to your chagrin, when we win and attain more power, we're going to improve your life. We're going to make sure you have the health care that you deserve. If you serve the country, you have the benefits that you deserve. When you retire, you have the Medicare and Social Security benefits that you deserve. Whether you like it or not, we're going to invest in infrastructure in your communities, roads, bridges, broadband, clean and reliable drinking water, updating airports. We're going to make sure there's a planet that is livable so that our kids and grandkids can prosper. Increase your wages. Decrease crime in your communities. That's what our movement's about. Not a hatred or a fear of people, but a dedication to them. And that includes you. That means lowering your prescription drug costs, making sure your kids are safe in school, or they're not food insecure or in poverty. That's what we're about. And so if you could just give up on your dedication to this con man who's doing all of this in his own self-interest, who's shown his whole life that's what he's about, him. If you could give up on that, the guy who had one big legislative quote unquote achievement, and it was lowering the taxes disproportionately of those who already have so much, giving more wealth to the wealthy. And if you could give up on a party that's doing the same, we could unite around uplifting everybody. Doesn't sound too bad, huh? Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel.